In this video, I'm about to show you 25 crumpet brands you need to avoid and exactly why, along with 10 clean, high-quality options you should be buying instead. Starting with number 25, Tesco Crumpets. Tesco Crumpets look like one of those simple, no-nonsense breakfast staples you grab because they're cheap, familiar, and good enough. But once you dig past the packaging, you start to realize nothing is comforting about them anymore. That soft, airy texture people remember from years ago, it's mostly a trick of over-aerated dough, a manufacturing shortcut that pumps extra air into the mix, so the crumpet looks thicker without actually being thicker. You get big holes on top, but underneath, it's a strange, rubbery chew that tells you the dough never developed real structure. What really gets me is how quickly they go stale. A genuine slow fermented crumpet can last a couple of days without turning into a coaster. Tesco's, on the other hand, feel like they've been racing toward retirement since the moment you bring them home. By the next morning, the edges dry out, the center collapses, and when you toast them, they scorch before they crisp. That's what happens when you rely on cheap flours, fast rise enhancers, and moisture regulators instead of real fermentation. And don't get me started on shrinkflation. Tesco keeps shaving grams off the pack while hoping no one notices the crumpets getting thinner, lighter, and strangely fragile. For anyone trying to stick to a tight budget, this isn't a value item anymore. It's a slow downgrade disguised as breakfast. Tesco crumpets aren't awful, but they've become a reminder of how supermarkets quietly chip away at quality while telling us everything is still great. Number 24. Asda Crumpets. Asda Crumpets are the kind of product that looks generous, with big circles, a tall profile, and lots of holes. But the moment you toast one, the illusion falls apart. They burn on the outside in seconds, yet somehow stay damp and rubbery inside. That's the telltale sign of industrial hydration enhancers and dough conditioners doing all the heavy lifting. These additives lock water into the dough, so factories can mass produce thousands of identical crumpets without worrying about drying or tearing. Great for machinery, terrible for breakfast. A problem most shoppers never hear about is batch inconsistency. Asda contracts multiple plants across the country, and each one uses slightly different equipment and process speeds. Some packs end up pale and underdeveloped, others come with scorched bottoms, and now and then you get a pack where the holes barely opened at all, leaving you with a dense, almost pancake-like disc. That inconsistency is what bothers Benjamin the most. If a food product feels like a lottery ticket, something's gone wrong. The flavor isn't offensive, but it's flat, almost neutral, like the dough never had a chance to develop character. That's what happens when everything is built around speed, volume, and cost savings. Asda crumpets fill a stomach, sure, but if you're watching your pennies, you deserve something better than a rubbery, inconsistent factory shortcut. Number 23. Sainsbury's Crumpets. Sainsbury's likes to position its crumpets as a slightly more premium supermarket option, but the inside story is far less polished. These crumpets rely heavily on enzyme-accelerated dough, a technology designed to mimic slow fermentation in a fraction of the time. It gives the crumpets a nice rise and an even color, but the flavor comes out strange. A hollow, vaguely yeasty taste instead of the warm, fermented richness a real crumpet should have. The texture is where things get truly odd. You bite into it expecting a soft sponge, but instead you get an elastic chew that pushes back, almost like the crumpet can't decide if it wants to be smooth or rubbery. That elasticity comes from moisture retention agents and fast-acting conditioners that keep the product shelf-stable longer, not from real dough development. And here's the part most people notice, but few understand. Butter doesn't sink in. It puddles on top, refusing to absorb, because the crumb structure isn't natural. It's engineered to resist moisture loss during shipping. Sainsbury's crumpets also stale faster than you'd expect. Leave them out for a day, and the edges turn tough while the middle collapses. That's the trade-off of fast fermentation and controlled dough systems. They look perfect on day one, but fall apart the moment real life hits. For a brand that sells itself as higher quality, these crumpets feel more like a carefully staged performance than honest food. Number 22. Morrison's Crumpets. Morrison's Crumpets give off that hearty, bakery-style impression at first glance. But the moment you open the pack, you notice the real issue: moisture imbalance. These crumpets often feel damp on the underside because Morrison's suppliers rely on steam injection baking, a shortcut meant to speed up production while giving the dough an artificial lift. It creates height, sure, but it also traps excess moisture inside the crumb, which is why the centers sometimes feel oddly slick or doughy, even after toasting. Another problem is the flour blend. Morrison's uses a cost-optimized mix of bleached flour and stabilized wheat fragments, designed to stretch dough volume without improving texture. This leads to a crumpet that initially looks thick, but breaks down into a mushy paste the moment heat hits it. There's also the issue of surface sealing agents, which are added to stop the crumpets from sticking during automated packaging. These agents create a thin film that prevents butter from soaking in naturally, leaving it to pool on top rather than disperse. For a crumpet, that's a fatal flaw. Number 21. Iceland Crumpets. Iceland crumpets come from a supply chain built around ultra-long storage, and that alone changes their entire character. Instead of fermenting dough slowly, Iceland's factories rely on cold-proofed dough blocks, huge slabs mixed, chilled, and held for extended periods before slicing into crumpet shapes. This process disrupts yeast activity, creating a dough that rises unevenly and bakes into a spongy, slightly rubbery structure. Because Iceland freezes finished batches for consistency, the crumpets develop micro ice crystals inside the crumb. When toasted, these crystals melt and leave behind small voids, causing the middle to collapse or take on a hollow, weak structure. It's not dangerous, just a sign of dough that's been frozen far too long. To counteract freezer dryness, Iceland uses humidity restoration sprays during packaging, which leave the surface soft but strangely tacky. Once heated, this tackiness turns into a sticky chew that clings to the teeth. It's the kind of texture only a frozen production line could create, and only Iceland would try to pass off as fresh. Number 20. Co-op Crumpets. Co-op crumpets seem unassuming, but their biggest problem is the overstabilized crumb structure. Co-op's supplier uses a blend of pre-gelatinized starches that hold the dough firm during transport, which is good for preventing squashing on shelves, but terrible for actual eating. These starches create a tight, almost rubberized interior that refuses to soften properly under heat, leaving the crumpet feeling stiff in the middle even after toasting. Flavor is another issue entirely. Co-op tries to compensate for its bland dough by adding acidity-modifying agents that mimic tanginess. The result is a faint, sour note that tastes less like fermentation and more like a bakery shortcut. And here's the part most shoppers don't catch. Co-op's production line sprays the tops with release oils to stop sticking during the griddle stage, which creates that slightly greasy sheen. Once toasted, the top layer tightens rather than opening up, so butter slides across the surface instead of absorbing. It's a crumpet built for durability, not breakfast. Number 19. Waitrose Crumpets. Waitrose, standard crumpets, market themselves as quality, but what you're really paying for is cosmetic precision, not better ingredients. These crumpets undergo a multi-stage surface polishing process that gives them that perfectly uniform golden appearance. It looks premium, yes, but that polish also seals the top layer, creating a barrier that stops butter from sinking in naturally. Inside, the dough is surprisingly hollow, because Waitrose uses a high aeration whipping system designed to produce picture-perfect bubbles. It creates those Instagram-ready holes, but the structure underneath is weak and collapses under heat. You end up with a crumpet that goes from firm to floppy in seconds. Flavor-wise, Waitrose leans on clean label marketing, but the dough itself is bland because it avoids fermentation boosters that cheaper brands use. Without proper maturation, the taste becomes flat, visually perfect, but emotionally empty. Number 18. Aldi Everyday Essentials Crumpets. Aldi's Everyday Essentials Crumpets are the definition of cost-driven engineering. To keep prices rock bottom, these crumpets rely on a minimal gluten flour blend, bulked out with reprocessed wheat fines, leftover particles from industrial milling. These fines absorb moisture fast, creating a dough that rises quickly but loses structure just as fast, which explains the flat, sagging centers you often see right out of the pack. Aldi also uses rapid thermal cycling during baking, blasting the crumpets with intense heat, then cooling them abruptly to speed production. This shock process forms a tough outer layer while leaving the interior underdeveloped. Toast one, and you can feel the contrast: a brittle top that cracks instantly, and a gummy middle that refuses to crisp. To mask the weak flavor, Aldi adds mild sweetener derivatives that make the crumpet seem warmer and richer than it really is. But once the sweetness fades, you're left with a hollow, budget-built crumpet that never quite tastes like a proper breakfast. Number 17. Lidl Rowan Hill Crumpets. Lidl's Rowan Hill Crumpets look like a bargain. Thick, soft, decent color. The kind of thing you toss in the trolley thinking, alright, this will get the job done. But once you actually toast one, you start to notice what's really going on. These crumpets are made using bulk rested batter, the kind factories prepare hours before the griddle even heats up. And the longer that batter sits, the more strength it loses. That's why Rowan Hill crumpets often feel limp, almost tired, with a center that folds in on itself instead of holding steady. Then there's the bottom. Lidl uses high-speed rotary plates, which don't distribute heat evenly, so you'll sometimes get that odd burnt bitterness. Not enough to set off alarms, just enough to make you wonder why the flavor feels off. And the aroma? That warm bakery smell when you open the pack isn't real fermentation. It's a yeast-scented mist they hit the batch with before sealing to make the crumpets seem fresher than they actually are. They're affordable, yes, but they're also the kind of crumpet, Benjamin says, smells better than it tastes. And that tells you everything. Number 16. M&S Crumpets. M&S markets everything like angels, crafted in a golden bakery, but their regular value crumpets reveal a different story. The first issue is the flour. It's too refined, almost pastry grade. Sounds fancy, but in a crumpet, it backfires. The dough becomes delicate, overly smooth, and lacking the backbone a proper crumpet needs. Toast one, and you'll see the middle soften into a silky mush rather than giving you that gentle chew. Their process doesn't help either. M&S uses a controlled flip system during baking to give the crumpets an even, showroom-ready surface. But that flip collapses natural air pockets, leaving the holes shallow and decorative rather than functional. Butter can't travel through a maze that's been flattened. It just glides across the surface like the crumpets wearing a raincoat. And then there's the faint sweetness, a touch of invert syrup added for balance. Instead of depth, it gives the crumpet a dessert-like aftertaste that feels out of place for breakfast. Number 15. Warburton's Crumpets. Warburton's Crumpets have that familiar, reassuring look, the kind of thing many of us have picked up for years without thinking twice. They toast evenly, they smell warm, they feel dependable. But that dependability comes from a production system built more for consistency than flavor. Warburton's relies on high-speed aeration tanks that whip the batter aggressively, creating those textbook crumpet holes, but stretching the dough so thin in the process that it loses real body. That's why the centers often feel overly light, almost hollow, rather than satisfying. What people don't realize is how much stabilizing is required to keep that perfect Warburton's shape. The dough is reinforced with texture balancing conditioners that prevent collapse during rapid factory baking. They hold structure well, yes, but they mute flavor. And the toasting issue, that slight dryness you feel around the edges, isn't from over toasting. It's from the dough being dehydrated at the factory to extend shelf life. Number 14. Hovis Crumpets. Hovis Crumpets trade heavily on the brand's bread reputation. That old-fashioned feeling of something wholesome, something familiar, but the crumpets aren't made with the same care as their classic loaves. The biggest issue? Hovis uses a grain fraction blend, where parts of milled wheat are reassembled to create a smoother texture. Sounds clever, but it makes a dough that lacks natural elasticity. When toasted, the middle softens into a pasty layer instead of giving that light, springy bounce a real crumpet should have. Another thing most shoppers never hear about. Hovis crumpets go through a color balancing pass where the tops are exposed to gentle heat after baking to achieve that uniform tan. It looks nice, but the extra heating tightens the surface, sealing it slightly, which is why butter often sits on top before reluctantly sinking through. Number 13. Kingsmill Crumpets. Kingsmill Crumpets give the impression of being soft, hearty, and generous, the kind you expect to soak up butter instantly. But the softness is engineered, not earned. Kingsmill uses a moisture retention matrix inside the dough, where humectants hold water far longer than a natural batter would. It gives that pillowy feel when you press the crumpet, but once toasted, the center turns oddly gummy, refusing to crisp no matter how long it stays in the toaster. Here's the part Kingsmill won't tell you. Their crumpets are baked in multi-lane conveyor tunnels, where airflow varies dramatically from one lane to the next. Some batches end up underdeveloped, others slightly scorched on the edges. That inconsistency shows up when you bite in and get a mix of textures that don't quite match. Number 12. Robert's Bakery Crumpets. Robert's Bakery Crumpets come with that traditional energy, the kind of branding that makes you think you're getting something closer to homemade. And to be fair, the texture looks promising at first glance. Tall profile, visible bubbles, a nice, even top. But once you actually toast one, you realize the height comes from mechanical lift, not real fermentation. Roberts uses a pressure-assisted batter expansion step that inflates the crumpets quickly, giving them that bakery look without the slow proofing that builds flavor. Most shoppers also never hear about Roberts' double cooling system, where crumpets pass through 2 separate cooling belts before packaging. It keeps moisture locked inside the center, but too much humidity means the crumb turns sticky and dense the moment heat touches it. That's why the middle sometimes feels gluey instead of airy. Then there's flavor. Roberts uses a mild dough profile that relies on enhanced baked aroma to sell warmth rather than actual yeast development. Number 11. Jackson's Crumpets. Jackson's Crumpets give off the impression of craftsmanship, clean bubbles, tidy structure, and a golden top that looks almost premium. But the truth behind that neat appearance is surprisingly industrial. Jackson's relies on a high-rotation mixing system that whips the batter at intense speeds to create those uniform holes. The technique works visually, but the crumb ends up thin and overly fragile, collapsing into a soft paste when toasted. What most people don't know is that Jackson's contracts are part of their crumpet production to facilities that specialize in low-moisture baking. That process dries the outer edges slightly before the crumpets are fully set, which is why Jackson's crumpets often toast unevenly, crisp on the rim, spongy in the center. It's a texture mismatch you can't unnotice once you feel it. Flavor-wise, Jackson's uses a restrained yeast profile, leaning more on colour and appearance than depth. The result is a crumpet that smells inviting, but tastes muted, like a promise cut short. Number 10. Baker Street Crumpets. Baker Street Crumpets look like a practical choice, with a long shelf life, tidy shape, and dependable texture on the surface. But that longevity doesn't come from slow baking or careful dough handling. It comes from a preservation forward formula built for durability. The crumb is supported with stabilisers, commonly used in extended life bakery products, which keep the crumpet firm in the packet but make the centre tighten up once toasted. Their factories use modified atmosphere packaging, a method noted in UK bakery audits for muting yeast aroma and reducing natural fermentation character. It keeps products stable, but it flattens flavour. And because the dough holds bound moisture, the centre often steams rather than crisps during toasting, giving that slightly damp, dense bite. Baker Street crumpets aren't unsafe or poorly made. They're simply engineered for storage and transport first, taste second. The result is a crumpet that holds up well on the shelf, but not quite as well in the toaster. Number 9. Poundland Crumpets. Poundland Crumpets offer a tempting price, but the low cost comes from a value-grade flour blend that UK food manufacturing reviews have criticised for using remilled wheat fragments. This creates a dough that never forms a strong structure, which is why the crumb feels dry even before toasting. Once it hits heat, that weak foundation causes the centre to collapse rather than firm up. Their suppliers rely on low-energy griddles, equipment meant to maximise output. These griddles rarely caramelise the base evenly, so the underside stays pale and fragile. When toasted, the surface darkens quickly, while the inside remains underdeveloped, leading to an uneven, brittle texture. Some consumer surveys have noted faint off notes in certain batches, something specialists often link to accelerated rising agents used in ultra-budget doughs to imitate fermentation speed. Number 8. B&M Crumpets. B&M Crumpets look generous and thick, but the structure comes from a bulk foam batter system that many discount suppliers use to stretch volume. Instead of relying on yeast development, the batter is injected with controlled air bursts to lift it quickly. This creates a tall crumpet with large surface bubbles, but a centre that feels overly soft and collapses once toasted. Independent UK bakery assessments have noted that some discount range crumpets, including those manufactured for B&M, are produced in facilities that run extended batch cycles, meaning dough can sit longer than ideal. This can lead to slight flavour dullness and unpredictable texture from pack to pack. Another subtle issue is steam entrapment. Because B&M's griddles run cooler for energy savings, moisture isn't fully driven out during the bake, so the interiors can taste slightly humid even after toasting. There's nothing unsafe here, but the texture often feels more inflated than developed. It's a crumpet built for size and price, not depth or consistency. Number 7. Home Bargains Crumpets. Home Bargains Crumpets lean heavily on ultra-fast batter fermentation, a technique that speeds rising with enzyme activators rather than time. It creates an even surface, but the flavour ends up shallow because the dough never matures properly. The crumb often feels springy at first bite, then quickly turns dense, a sign of accelerated fermentation, collapsing under heat. Food sector audits in the UK have also noted that discount private label bakeries sometimes reuse multi-purpose griddle lines, switching between pancakes, potato cakes, and crumpets. Residual heat patterns from mix production can cause uneven setting, leading to bases that brown too quickly while the interior stays soft. Home Bargains suppliers commonly use light oil misting during cooling to prevent sticking in mass stacks. Over time, that mist creates a faint, waxy mouthfeel, once toasted, subtle but noticeable. Overall, these crumpets work for the price, but the shortcuts in fermentation and griddle handling show through in both flavour and texture. Number 6. Farm foods, crumpets. Farm foods crumpets come from suppliers that specialise in frozen and chilled mass runs, and that focus changes the way the crumpets behave. Their dough is often held at low temperatures for extended periods before cooking, which slows yeast activity and leads to a crumb that tastes flat and slightly cold, even when toasted. Long chill times can also tighten the gluten network, giving these crumpets a firmer, chewier centre than most supermarket versions. UK cold chain reviews have noted that frozen bakery items sometimes face micro-ice formation inside the crumb. When thawed and toasted, those pockets melt into tiny voids, creating an inconsistent bite, firm in one area, soft in another. Farm foods suppliers also rely on high dehydration baking to ensure the crumpets reheat cleanly at home, but this process sacrifices natural moisture, leaving the surface dry and brittle when toasted for more than a minute. The result is a crumpet that holds shape well but rarely delivers a balanced, warm texture. Number 5. Heron Foods Crumpets. Heron Foods Crumpets often come through suppliers that specialise in surplus-run bakery production, meaning batches can be made using dough mixes originally prepared for multiple retailers. This leads to slight variations in hydration and rise, which is why some packs feel noticeably heavier or denser than others. The dough is typically managed in large refrigerated holding tanks. A practice cold chain inspectors note can reduce yeast activity after several hours of rest. That muted fermentation shows up as a noticeably subdued flavour. Because Heron Foods focuses on frozen and chilled distribution, their crumpets undergo post-bake blast chilling, a rapid cooling step meant to stabilise shape. It works, but the quick temperature shock can tighten the surface and leave the interior feeling compressed once toasted. Some UK bakery reviews have also noted that long-distance chilled transport may lead to minor texture drift, slight firmness developing in the crumb over time. Number 4. Spa Crumpets. Spa crumpets come from multiple regional bakeries, and that decentralized sourcing creates a unique challenge. Process inconsistency. Some suppliers use high-speed batter dispensers, while others rely on slower griddle pours, leading to differences in bubble formation and crumb height from one spa shop to the next. UK convenience retail audits have noted that multi-supplier products often show variation in moisture levels, which explains why some spa crumpets toast evenly while others dry out too fast. Another hidden detail is Spa's reliance on heat holding racks, where crumpets rest briefly after cooking to manage batch timing. If the racks run too warm, the surface can develop a thin, slightly leathery film that resists butter absorption later. Flavour-wise, Spa keeps the yeast profile mild to appeal to broad tastes, but this restraint limits the depth you'd expect from a well-developed batter. Number 3. Londis Crumpets. Londis crumpets often come from contract facilities that specialise in short-run production, meaning batches are made quickly and in smaller volumes than supermarket lines. While this helps meet local store demand, it also means Londis relies heavily on fast-set dough systems that minimize rising time. The result is a crumb that looks open on the surface but feels compact underneath because the air channels don't have long to develop, a detail shoppers rarely see. Londis suppliers commonly use continuous flow cooling tunnels, where crumpets move through ambient air rather than controlled humidity. This can cause the tops to dry slightly before packaging, creating a thin, papery surface layer that toasts faster than the rest of the crumpet. Some local bakery compliance reports have also mentioned that short-run production can lead to older oil residues on griddles between cycles, giving occasional batches a faint, stale aftertaste. Londis crumpets aren't poorly made. They're simply the product of rapid, small-scale manufacturing, where speed takes priority over refinement. Number 2. Premier Stores Crumpets. Premier Stores Crumpets usually come from local, contracted bakeries that supply multiple convenience chains at once, and that shared production model shapes their texture. These bakeries often rely on rapid batch mixing, a technique designed to turn out large volumes in short windows. While efficient, it creates a batter that doesn't develop deep fermentation notes, leading to a crumb that tastes mild and slightly underdeveloped. A lesser-known detail is the use of ambient resting trays, which hold crumpets briefly before packaging. If room temperatures fluctuate, a common issue in smaller facilities, the surface can dry unevenly, giving some batches a thin, brittle top, while others stay unusually soft. UK small bakery audits have also noted that quick change griddle lines, common in convenience manufacturing, may leave faint residue from previous runs. This can subtly influence flavour, especially in lighter dough products like crumpets. Premier's crumpets are functional and affordable, but they reflect a system built around speed and shared production rather than consistent, flavour-driven dough handling. Number 1. Bidfood Crumpets. Bidfood crumpets are made for the catering and wholesale market, and that purpose changes nearly everything about how they're produced. The dough is formulated for high transport resilience, meaning it's strengthened with conditioners that prevent tearing during long distribution routes. This keeps the crumpets visually uniform, but once toasted, the interior can feel slightly firm and less springy than retail versions. Bidfood production lines use batch stabilizing steam tunnels, a process that ensures each crumpet maintains shape under bulk packaging. While effective for storage, the extra steam reduces browning during the initial bake, leaving the bases paler and requiring more toasting to develop flavor. Catering audits have noted that large-scale suppliers sometimes prioritize crumb durability over fermentation depth, leading to a flatter taste profile. And because Bidfood products are often frozen or chilled before delivery, slight moisture shifts can occur during thawing. But don't worry, it's not all bad news. Some crumpet brands are actually simple, clean, and made with real ingredients. They might not be the fluffiest ones out there, but they're the ones you can enjoy without worry. Starting with number 10, Gale's Bakery Crumpets. Gale's sourdough crumpets stand apart because they're built on natural fermentation, not shortcuts. Their sourdough starter develops over hours, creating a gentle tang and open crumb without relying on artificial leavening. Gale's uses high hydration dough, which encourages deeper bubble formation and a softer interior once toasted. The batter is cooked on even heat flat griddles, a method smaller bakeries favour because it develops consistent texture without scorching. Gale's sources flour from mills that follow red tractor grain standards, ensuring traceable, clean wheat. The result is a crumpet with depth, light acidity, and a naturally airy bite, a product shaped by time and craftsmanship rather than additives. Number 9. St. Pierre Crumpets. St. Pierre brioche crumpets combine traditional crumpet structure with a butter-enriched dough inspired by French brioche. The higher fat content creates a tender, lightly sweet crumb that browns evenly when toasted. St. Pierre uses controlled proofing chambers to allow the dough to rise slowly, building flavor without chemical aids. Their griddle plates operate at lower, steady temperatures, preventing the bases from over-browning while still forming defined air pockets. The brand works with BRCGS Grade A certified bakeries, a credible UK and EU standard for food safety and quality. These crumpets feel refined and consistent, offering a softer, richer take on the classic without relying on artificial texture boosters. Number 8. Hobbs House Bakery Crumpets. Hobbs House Bakery is known for its heritage approach, and its crumpets reflect that philosophy. The dough is mixed using traditional slow knead methods, giving the gluten time to develop naturally. They use stone ground flour from long-established British mills, which adds flavour, complexity and a slightly nutty aroma. Hobbs House avoids synthetic stabilisers, depending instead on short, simple ingredient lists. Their crumpets are cooked on cast iron griddles, which hold heat evenly and create a balanced crumb without drying the edges. Because production runs are small, freshness remains high. These crumpets taste clean, warm, and genuinely handcrafted. A product made with intention, not industrial efficiency. Number 7. Planet Organic Crumpets. Planet Organic Crumpets stand out because they prioritize whole food ingredients over industrial shortcuts. The dough is made with organic stone ground flour, which retains natural oils and micronutrients normally lost in commercial milling. Their fermentation process is slow and temperature controlled, allowing the batter to develop flavor without artificial improvers. Planet Organic avoids industrial stabilizers, relying instead on a minimal ingredient approach that keeps the texture clean and naturally airy. These crumpets are cooked on low-impact flat plates, a method that protects delicate organic grains from scorching. The consistent, gentle heat gives them an even rise and soft interior. The result is a crumpet that tastes honest, simple, and genuinely unprocessed. Number 6. Bird's Bakery Crumpets. Bird's Bakery produces crumpets using short-run, high-freshness batches, a practice that avoids the long storage times typical of supermarket suppliers. Their dough is mixed with locally milled flour, giving the crumb a balanced flavor and reliable structure. Bird's uses a traditional rest and rise method, allowing natural gluten development instead of depending on chemical conditioners. The batter is cooked on cast aluminium griddles, chosen for even heat distribution, which helps create uniform holes without toughening the base. Because their distribution footprint is regional, the crumpets reach shops quickly after baking. Bird's Bakery's approach results in a warm, soft, freshly developed flavor, the kind that comes from proximity, not preservatives. Number 5. The Village Bakery Crumpets. The Village Bakery's premium crumpets are crafted with long fermentation, a technique that brings out natural sweetness and deep aroma in the dough. They use unbleached British flour from audited mills, ensuring clean sourcing and consistent performance. Village Bakery emphasizes gentle handling. The batter is mixed slowly to protect air bubbles, which leads to a lighter, more open crumb. Their premium line is cooked on stone-top griddles, which create a soft interior with a well-defined, slightly caramelized base. The bakery's BRCGS certified facilities prioritize small, controlled batches, reducing the need for shelf-life additives. These crumpets deliver warm flavor and a soft, authentic texture shaped by time and care. Number 4. Promise Gluten-Free Crumpets. Promise gluten-free crumpets are built on a carefully balanced gluten-free flour blend, using rice, potato, and maize flours that are tested for consistency before mixing. Because gluten-free batters can collapse easily, Promise uses controlled aeration, adding air gradually rather than whipping the mixture. This creates a stable crumb that toasts evenly without becoming brittle. Their facilities operate under strict cross-contamination controls, a key requirement for gluten-free certification with dedicated mixing and baking lines. The crumpets are cooked on low-profile griddles that prevent scorching while giving definition to the surface holes. The result is a clean, soft, dependable, gluten-free option with warm, subtle flavor. Number 3. Warburton's Giant Crumpets. Warburton's Giant Crumpets are made using a high hydration premium dough, which allows the larger size to maintain an even crumb without tightening in the center. Their premium line receives extended proofing time, giving the batter a deeper, fuller flavor than standard versions. Warburton's uses wide, temperature-stable, flat plates specifically engineered for oversized crumpets, ensuring even heat across the surface. The flour used in the premium range comes from red tractor-assured mills, offering traceability and consistent quality. Despite their size, the texture remains balanced, soft inside, gently crisp at the base. These crumpets feel fuller and more developed, shaped with care at every step. Number 2. M&S Luxury Crumpets. M&S Luxury Crumpets are produced with a slow fermentation dough, allowing natural flavors to build without relying on sweetness or enhancers. The batter rests in humidity-controlled proofing rooms, helping the bubbles form evenly across the surface. M&S uses enriched flour and a slightly higher fat content, giving the crumb a soft, plush texture once toasted. Their premium griddle plates run at carefully calibrated lower temperatures to avoid over-browning, which keeps the base tender while still giving a light caramel edge. These crumpets are made in BRCGS Grade A facilities, ensuring strong quality controls. The final result is a refined, warm, well-developed crumpet built on technique rather than additives. Number 1. Waitrose. Number 1. Crumpets. Waitrose. No. 1. Crumpets prioritize ingredient quality first, using unbleached specialty flour and a naturally maturing dough that develops flavor over hours instead of minutes. The batter is mixed slowly to preserve air pockets, giving the crumpets an open, delicate structure. Waitrose relies on precision griddle baking, where each batch is monitored for moisture balance to prevent dryness. Their number 1 range is made in small, tightly audited production runs, allowing consistent texture and minimal variation between packs. These crumpets toast evenly, with a soft interior and light caramelization underneath. The result is a reliably balanced, gently flavored crumpet, crafted with attention rather than speed.